Well. Clemson Tiger fans, college football fans, welcome back to another episode of the All In Show right here on the Voice of College Football Clemson channel. Thank you so much for joining us. I am, as always, your host, Tiger Paul Craven. I got my boy Jordan Bowman in the back. I'll bring him on momentarily, but until we start the show tonight, if you're not subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button for us. Hit that like button for us. This is a live video. That really helps us out. We're trying to grow the channel. And we got a big matchup coming against Notre Dame this week. We got a special guest coming on later in the show tonight. So I hope you guys stick around for that. We are also simulcasting on the Voice of College Football Notre Dame channel. So welcome all the Notre Dame fans. I hope you guys get in here, get into the comment section. Let us know what you guys think about the game coming up. Let us know what you think about the score. Let us know what you think about the matchups. It's going to be a great talk tonight. We're going to get into everything that there is to talk about Clemson football, Notre Dame football, and the matchup that is to come this Saturday at 12 high noon is the game. So the noon game is going to be broadcast on ABC. But without further ado, I'll bring on my boy Jordan Bowman. Jordan, how you doing tonight, man?
I get the real question should be, we're really, however my night is going, it can't be as good or as wild as probably Tyler from Spartanburg has been the last couple of days.
Tyler has turned into a celebrity, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has. I'm just wondering what he's doing. I hope he had a happy Halloween and. Wow, that was something. I'm still kind of reeling from that, and it's hard to even think about the game this Saturday with everything that's happened this week. But I've been good, and had a really fun Halloween, and I'm really not looking forward to to watching this game Saturday. Based on some of the things that have come out recently, but alas, I'm still a diehard Tiger fan, and I'm going to be there.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it, man. It's always a great day to be a Clemson Tiger. At the end of the day, we are diehard Tiger fans on this channel. And I'm sure everyone watching here is diehard Tiger fans as well. And at the end of the day, this season has been a disappointment. I mean, let's just be honest. It is not what we thought it would be heading in, from the reports that we got from fall camp and heading into the season. We thought that this season would be much more than it is. And heading into the Notre Dame and Clemson game, we thought that this would be, possibly a top 10, top 5 matchup, heading into this week. And it has not, both teams have not really lived up to, those kind of standings so far. But Notre Dame's obviously had a much better season than the Clemson Tigers. But before we get into the Notre Dame game and before we bring on our special guest, I think we should, kind of circle back and give our final thoughts on the NC State game because it was quite a doozy for the Clemson Tigers. It was something that most of us are not proud of. We've lost back-to-back games now for the first time since 2010. North Carolina State kind of, just outplayed the Tigers in every facet of the game, basically. And it was not an easy game to watch. I went back and rewatched the game. It was not any better the second time around. As a Clemson Tiger fan to watch. What were kind of your thoughts rewatching the game, and what are your kind of drawaways from that NC State game?
I mean, really, it was just more of the same. I mean, when we talked about it in the post game, we've been like we've been a broken record this entire year talking about all the issues that this Clemson team has faced. And, this NC State game was just another microcosm of, you win everything in the stat sheet except for the scoreboard. You have you outgain NC State by like 160 yards. You have a 21-9 first down advantage. All of these things, they really, their only offense was two big plays, and yet you still found a way to lose because one, you gave them points, and you didn't finish your drives. And that's just kind of what this Clemson offense has been. It's turnovers and not being able to finish drives. So at the end of the day, it was more of the same. Run game was ineffective. Will Shipley going out didn't help. He's kind of a question mark for this game. And you're ineffective running the ball. And, Cade Klubnik is very mistake prone. And so when you combine those two things, that's kind of where we are. I mean, there's not really much more to say about that, this game, but I just felt like we had to, kind of give our final wrap on it. There's not really much else. I'd like to move on. I hate losing to Donut Dave, so I don't like thinking about it more than I have to.
I don't think any Clemson team or any Clemson fan wants to lose to Donut Dave. That's kind of the that's kind of the bottom floor for this Clemson team, and that's kind of been par for the course for this Clemson team so far this season. And at the end of the day, the Clemson defense gave up 202 yards of total offense to the Wolfpack, and pretty much every one of those yards, or at least majority of those yards, were given up off of two plays. It was a 50-yard run. It was a 72-yard pass. And those were kind of the plays that propelled North Carolina State into a win. Again, the Clemson offense spots North Carolina State 14 points, and that's kind of the story of the Clemson season for me. This Clemson team consistently turns the ball over in the worst situations possible. And at the end of the day, that's just been Clemson's offense so far this season. They put this defense in a very bad position, and you can say that a Clemson defense should have made a play here or a play there, but at the end of the day, I just don't accept it. I don't accept that. I don't accept that excuse. The Clemson offense has consistently put this defense's back against the wall, and at the end of the day, they're only human, and they can see everything that we've seen on the field, and they know that this Clemson offense just simply cannot get it done. And because of that, they fold in certain situations. And at the end of the day, that's what happened this past Saturday against NC State. We spotted them 14 points, and without those 14 points, we would have won the game. So at the end of the day, I think this loss is 100% on the Clemson offense. The Cade Klubnik, two interceptions. I'll go through real quickly. I will go through the sequence of drives for the Clemson offense for the entire game. So for the first half, they punt on the first drive, and then they immediately follow that up by an interception, and then follow that up by two straight punts, a touchdown, and then a punt and a missed field goal. That rounds out the first half for the Clemson offense. A terrible first half, by the way. And then they come out the first half, they punt, they have another interception, they punt again, they get a touchdown, they punt, field goal, and then they end the game on downs. And that's just kind of the story of the year. That's just kind of par for the course for this Clemson offense. They have struggled mightily this season. They can't get out of their own way. They continue to turn the ball over in the worst situations. And I've heard Clemson fans out there this week talking about the defense and how they should have played better. But at the end of the day, I just don't want to hear it about the defense. I think the defense has played well enough to win every single game that Clemson's played this season, and the offense just hasn't. So I put the onus on this record solely on the offense, and that's just my opinion.
I mean, it's pretty valid. I don't know how you could argue it. So I mean, you hit the nail on the head, and the offense just continues to put this team in bad situations. You know, the offensive line has regressed significantly. I think, I mean, part of that has been due to injuries. I will grant, but coming into the season, we were told we had 10 offensive linemen that they felt comfortable playing, and it seemed
Yeah.
like we really only have a couple that are even starter level, quality, and and one of them is not going to be playing. Well, two of them. Well, you already lost one for the season, and then another one is not playing on Saturday, and probably is going to miss extended period of time. So that's another loss. You have questions at left tackle. The person you started at left tackle last game might be a scratch for this game on Saturday as well. So there's just so much about this offensive line that just you don't have much depth, even though you were told you had a whole lot of depth, and the guys you do have are getting injured. So can't block, can't run block. Pass blocking has been really, really inconsistent. Although I thought they were actually a little bit better on in some ways they were a little bit better on Saturday than they were against Miami, but still not very good. And that's just kind of the story. And everything else, really, nothing else works beyond that. I thought, I think Jake Brenningstool has been a really bright spot for this offense the last 2 weeks. And, Phil Moffitt continues to run hard. He had a really big run and that got Clemson into the red zone and gave him a chance to pull within 3. But, you don't give him the ball in that red zone possession. Then you have to
Did he get a handoff in the red zone? Did I miss his handoff?
He did. I mean, he had two goal line touchdowns, and then
that's crazy. That's crazy.
And then when Clemson was driving, when it was 24-14, and he had that big run, and they were down by 10, and they had a chance to pull within 3. They don't give him the ball at all.
What did we do in that situation? Oh yeah, that's right. We threw a fade to the corner of the end zone. Absolutely inexplicable. I mean, this Clemson offense continues to not get out of its own way. We continue to make boneheaded decisions. It's absolutely ridiculous at this point. This Clemson offense is just bad, and this Clemson team is a bad team. And look no further than bad teams find ways to lose games, and that's what this Clemson team has. That's about the only thing this Clemson team has done consistently this season is find a way to lose games. And in my opinion, this offense is bad. This defense is I think doing their best. Are they the best defense in the country? Are they a Brent Venables defense? No, I'm not saying they are, but I think they're a defense that is good enough to win every game that we have played this season, and the offense is just not supporting them in that way. So for all of those reasons, that's why this Clemson team is 4-4 at this point. We are a 500 football team. We are a bad football team that has lost to 2 teams that we should not have lost to the past 2 weeks. And you got to go all the way back to 2010 to see us lose back-to-back weeks in a college football season. And it's just unacceptable at this point. There needs to be changes made in this Clemson staff. There needs to be changes made in the philosophy of this Clemson staff. And hopefully we see it this offseason. If not, we'll know where we stand going forward.
Absolutely. And I will say this because this show has been obviously there hasn't been a lot to be positive about at least as far as this season has gone, but I do think changes are coming. I know that the questions about Dabo and all of that and whether he's willing to make the decisions needed. I think some of the things he said, if you've been paying real close attention, I think some of the things he said this week, beyond the Tyler from Spartanburg incident,
we'll get into that a little bit later.
Yeah, we'll probably hit on that after the preview. But I think some of the things he said this week are a pretty good indicator that he's not okay with how things have gone. And I think behind closed doors, it's going. If you were able to be a fly on the wall to some of those staff meetings and stuff, I think you'd be seeing a very different Dabo. I kind of have a reason to believe that. So I think things are going to change. Things are going to change. It can't happen this year. This team is what it is, and they have to deal with what they've got and work with what they've got for this season. But I expect some pretty drastic changes, off season. So
yeah, and I mean, if I'm being honest, I trust Dabo to make the proper decisions this off season, to put Clemson back on the right track. I really do. And the section of the fan base and the section the loud minority of this fan base that is talking about fire Dabo, you're completely clueless. You guys are out of touch. You guys are completely ridiculous at this point. I absolutely trust Dabo Sweeney to make the proper decisions to put this Clemson program back on the map. I really do. And as much as I'm going to criticize this Clemson program probably for the rest of the year, do not mistake it for me wanting Dabo Sweeney gone from this Clemson program. He has built this Clemson program. I think that he is one of the most competitive people in college football, and he is not going to sit by the wayside and watch this Clemson program waste away to a middle to lower level ACC team that doesn't sniff any significant college football, performance. I don't think he will. He's way too competitive for that. He will make the tough decisions. That's why we pay him a lot of money. We'll get into Tyler's call a little bit later in the show. But I trust Dabo Sweeney to make the decisions. I think he knows the decisions that he needs to make. He's not going to come out in a press conference after a Miami loss or after any loss this season and tell you the decisions that he's going to make. But he will make the decisions in the offseason. We saw him do it last offseason with the firing of Brandon Streeter and bringing in our offensive coordinator that we currently have. And I think he'll do the same. If you look back to last offseason, he had a come to Jesus meeting with a lot of the coaches on his staff. And he told them, hey, this is the season. You better get your stuff together. And if it doesn't work, you're probably going to be gone. And I assume that there's going to be quite a bit of changes this coming offseason for the Clemson Tigers, specifically on the coaching staff, because Dabo Sweeney wants to win. At the end of the day, he's a competitor. He wants to win, and he's going to make the tough decisions that make that happen, in my opinion.
Absolutely. I don't have much else to add. You want to hit on some positive news? Clemson got a commit yesterday.
Yeah, let's do it. Hey, what was the Clemson commit that we got?
Yeah, obviously not for the 24 class, but for the 25 class, interior offensive lineman Easton Ware from Liberty Christian Academy in Lynchburg, Virginia, just announced his commitment to Clemson yesterday. Really nice addition for the class. He'll be Clemson's third addition to the 25 class to go along with Gideon Davidson, his high school teammate, and Blake Hebert. So really nice core. You have a quarterback, you have a blue chip quarterback, blue chip running back, blue chip offensive lineman. It's a really nice core of players to build around. And this is it's a nice commitment, and it kind of shows that Clemson is trying to be a little bit more proactive and a little bit more aggressive this cycle because of sort of the offensive line misses that they've had in this 24 class. So really nice to get Easton Ware. Notre Dame was the primary competition for him and he's profiles to be a really nice player. I haven't really dug into his film too much, but hey, if Notre Dame likes him, I like him. That's kind of how I am with how they develop offensive linemen. So really nice get for the Tigers, and I really am excited about these future classes. And while this season hasn't gone the way that we had all hoped, there's still a lot of reason to be excited about the future with some of the talent that's coming in these next couple of cycles.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we continue to recruit pretty well along the offensive line. It's been a rough class for the Clemson Tigers so far this recruiting cycle, especially when it comes to offensive linemen. But at the end of the day, you got to trust the coaching staff. You got to trust Dabo Sweeney. You got to trust their evaluation. We'll see what changes are made in the offseason. And it's a good get for the Tigers for sure.
And speaking of Notre Dame, you ready to kind of dive into this game on Saturday?
Absolutely, let's do it.
Sorry. Yeah, this is going to be a really interesting game on Saturday for a lot of reasons. Anything from the Vegas odds to sort of the matchup, some of the storylines about this game. Clemson coming in unranked. Notre Dame hasn't come to Death Valley since 2015. We all remember that game. Sam Hartman is the quarterback for Notre Dame, and in case we all forgot, and Clemson fans have a lot of familiarity with him. And he's looking to get his first win over the Tigers on Saturday. A lot of different storylines kind of converging. Not to mention, this is the second matchup in a row, in 2 years. And obviously we can talk about what happened last year, but I'm sure a lot of Clemson fans wouldn't want to discuss that too much. So yeah, there's you kind of have that sort of revenge factor as well on the Clemson side of things. So there's a lot of interesting things about this matchup. And it's not really in the fashion that we had all expected coming into the season. But we're not just going to talk about it by ourselves. We have a special guest with us tonight. He has been on the show before. I'm sure you guys are very familiar with him. He's been a frequent commenter in the comment section. Really does a great job of supporting the show, and he does great work over on the Notre Dame Voice of College Football channel. I consider him a good friend. My man, Will ND.
Thanks so much for having me on, guys. Really excited to talk ball with you.
Yeah, man. How you been?
I've been doing well. I've recovered from the heartbreak in Columbus and the disappointment in Louisville the past couple of weeks. That win over SC, we got that, and then nice win over. Always great to see Pat Narduzzi be miserable. So last week was a lot of fun too.
I remember checking the scores, during that game, because me and Tiger Paw Craven, we were like doing our post game show as that game was kind of wrapping up, and we were like, good Lord, when we saw the score, we were like, oh man, this is gonna be fun to talk about next week. But Will, I kind of wanted to start just kind of give your overall thoughts on how Notre Dame season has played out. I mean, obviously you're a 2-loss team. I mean, still ranked in the top 20. Have a good bit to play for. Obviously, the fashion of those 2 losses was kind of disappointing, but this is still a very, very good football team that's coming into Death Valley on Saturday, especially knowing the woes that Clemson has had. So what are your thoughts, like overall from a Notre Dame fan perspective on how this season has played out?
Well, obviously going into the season, we were hoping for playoffs as we're Clemson fans. And it was and we were feeling really good heading to that Ohio State game. The Central Michigan game was kind of sleepy, but we looked fantastic against our first 3 opponents and then good against our fourth. And then as the game went on, pretty much I think the team went toe-to-toe with Ohio State, and then it looked like we were going to win. And then a few sort of coaching mishaps went on, and then of course, the game ended, and that might have been one of the most painful losses I've experienced. Like after that post game that I had to do for the channel, I cried. Like I actually cried.
Wow, I didn't remember. I remember tuning in to that one. I guess I missed that. Wow, but yeah, that was a brutal way to lose a game.
Yeah, especially with all the Ohio State people that were being annoying before the game and annoying after. But
we know about that fan base.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that fan base either. I like people in the fan base, but overall, I like Mark. Mark's awesome.
Of course.
And a few other
right now.
Ohio State friends I have, but yeah. And then after that, we went to Duke, and we were clearly we're still reeling from the Ohio State loss, but we ended up getting it done by heroics from Audric Estime with the touchdown, and then Sam with the fourth down run. And then going into that Louisville game, like I was thinking, okay, we could play well, or we could still be reeling from two games that were down to the wire. And I was checking Twitter and I was checking the message boards, and one of the writers that I follow, Brian Driscoll, says this team does not look ready for this game. They do not look like they're locked in, and it showed. As what I watched in that game was not the team that I've seen the first half of the season. And even though it was 7-7 going into the halftime, I'm like, all right, can the team come out in halftime and play well? And our best receiver, Chris Tyree, dropped what would have been the touchdown pass, and I'm like, we're not winning this game. And then it looks like our defense got off the field, and then Maris had a face mask penalty, and I'm like, yeah, we're not going to win this game. And then the Cardinals just pulled away, and they ended our ACC winning streak. So that was tough. And then the next week there's USC. And I'm like, all right, this team, I know the team's played 3 really hard games in a row, but you got to be ready for USC, especially with what Caleb Williams did to us last year. And although the offense still wasn't great, the defense pretty much took over and just won that game. And I mean, I was at the game. It was a lot of fun. And then we had our bye week, and then we destroyed Pitt. So overall, it's disappointing, but I also feel like this team could accomplish a lot if they end up going 10-2, getting into a New Year's Six Bowl and winning it. Overall, I still think that would be a successful season, a huge step forward for this Irish program and the project that Marcus Freeman is building. So, yeah, still a lot to play for, but it's still a bit of a disappointment. But this is a very good Irish team, and hopefully they can take care of business this Saturday. Historically, recently, the Irish have had trouble winning in hostile environments. So a win in Death Valley would really show that the program is trending upward. So this is a huge game for the Irish. So really excited for the game this week.
Absolutely. And on that note, I guess from the Clemson side of things, there's you mentioned Notre Dame coming into Death Valley, and it's a noon kickoff on ABC, so it's not necessarily going to be like the type of environment that we saw 8 years ago, and certainly
the hurricane game, the BYOG game.
Yeah, but there's no monsoon game, coming in either, so that doesn't help. But this is a really interesting, matchup from a storyline perspective for both sides. And obviously there's not a whole lot of positivity on the Clemson side of things heading into this game. Notre Dame obviously is a very good team. Clemson, not so much in a lot of ways. What are your kind of reservations about this game? Because obviously there's, Notre Dame, I think, should be the expected winner. I mean, they're favorite. I believe they're a 3-point favorite.
3-point favorite right now, yeah.
Which feels almost kind of short, kind of a short line, considering how both teams have played up to this point. So, what are your kind of reservations about this game from a matchup standpoint? And then what are things that you feel confident about heading into this game?
Well, my main reservation for this game is that the Irish offense, there's good pieces on this team, but I felt like they've never really put it all together for a full game. I mean, you can say that for the NC State game. Really, the second half, I felt like they put it all together because NC State, I believe, still has a good defense on that team, and the Irish scored 45 points in that game. But overall, I don't know. Like there's pieces on the offensive line, like Joel and Blake Fisher are great. Zeke Correll, I feel like is a good center, but like the two other guys on that line just really haven't been able to put it together this season. And I'm just worried that the Clemson D-line, there's great guys on that D-line. Same with the secondary. That if Sam doesn't get the time that he needs, he's going to struggle. And then I still feel like your D-line, I mean, Audrick's a really good back, but he still needs a bit of space to work. So
we know how good he is. Don't worry.
We know. He rushed for 263 yards last season. So,
well, not just him.
Well, not just him, but the Notre Dame team as a whole rushed for 263 yards against this Clemson defense last season, which gives me pause for concern as a Clemson Tiger fan.
Yeah,
as good as we've been against the run this season, that worries me, especially with our lack of depth at defensive end. If we cannot pressure Sam Hartman and Notre Dame just decides to, play big boy football and just come at the Clemson defense, as good as we've been at the run and stopping the run this season, that worries me as a Clemson fan coming into this game.
Yeah. And you mentioned, because I go back to that Miami game. I mean, the defense definitely kept. They did a good enough job to win that game, but in that fourth quarter, they got worn down. And obviously, in a very similar fashion to what happened last year. It was kind of like, I mean, Miami had a true freshman quarterback that we knew wasn't really going to be able to throw the ball. Notre Dame had Drew Pine, so it's kind of a similar situation. We knew both teams were going to run the ball, and
we couldn't stop it.
And couldn't stop it.
Couldn't stop it.
And then that's, in those second half specifically of both games, I mean, Clemson's defense got gashed, and that's kind of the scary part for me. I think it really didn't have to do with. I think this year it's kind of been more. I think the second level has not been as good at filling those run fits and those gaps as well. It's not even really so much the defensive line, and that's concerning. That's something that this Notre Dame team is built to do, and something that they've been able to do.
Look, this Notre Dame team, they are a physical team on both lines of scrimmage. They are a very physical team. They are a team that's going to come after this Clemson team, and the depth on the defensive line really worries me. But what more so worries me is our offensive line. We are still playing musical chairs at offensive line. And Cade Klubnik, I feel like, is going to be running for his life in this game. I think Notre Dame is going to pin their ears back. They're going to come after Cade Klubnik. This game did not bode well for the Clemson Tigers last season. If you look at it, we got bodied in this game last season. I mean, Notre Dame came out and just out-physicaled this Clemson team. And it's not something that you see very often against a Clemson team. Both on the offensive side and the defensive side of the ball. But that is exactly what Notre Dame did last season. They ran for 263 yards on the ground against Clemson. And if they are able to do that in this game coming up Saturday, Clemson loses big. Clemson's going to have
Rocco Spindler and Pat Coogan can block well.
Yeah.
I think this game will be a comfortable Irish win. I just can't trust those guys. They haven't been able to be consistent this season. Especially against the bad teams, they've done well. But against they played pretty well against Ohio State. But then the Louisville game, the Duke game, they weren't great. And they were part of the reasons why the Irish almost lost those games. But if those guys block well, very confident in an Irish victory. But if not,
Yeah, absolutely.
still think the Clemson can keep it close at the end and then maybe squeak it out.
Yeah,
that's my greatest fear.
I think you're right, Will, in the fact that I think the running game is going to be the catalyst for who wins this game. Clemson is going to have to run the ball well in this game in order to win, and they're also going to have to stop Notre Dame from running the ball well in this game. If Clemson hopes to win this game, the offense is going to have to run the ball well. They're going to have to keep the Notre Dame defense off balance. They're going to have to
stay ahead of schedule.
Yeah, we're gonna have to stay ahead of schedule because Notre Dame has a really good secondary. Mm-hmm. They have to stay ahead of schedule in this game, and if they don't, Notre Dame is going to pin their ears back, and they're going to come after Cade Klubnik, and they're going to pin their ears back, and Cade Klubnik is going to make mistakes, and this is a defense that is.
Very opportunistic.
Yeah, they're an opportunistic defense. I think they've had 13 interceptions this season, and that doesn't bode well for a Clemson team. That doesn't bode well for a Cade Klubnik who has struggled in staring down receivers and not moving through his progression this season. So, and an offensive line that is kind of reeling for the most part. I mean. The biggest complaint from Clemson fans so far this season is the musical chairs at offensive line. We have now moved, our rotating left tackle, I guess, now to right guard because we just don't have answers along the offensive line. And to me, that just screams of desperation for this Clemson coaching staff. I mean, that's just what it screams to me. We don't have answers along the offensive line, and to me, that's going to be a problem in this game against Notre Dame, specifically if we get behind the chains. If we get behind the chains against this Notre Dame team, they're going to pin their ears back, and they are going to bait Cade Klubnik into a lot of mistakes. And that's what they've proven so far this season. Turning it over to the defensive side of the ball, the defense has to limit the running game of Notre Dame. We have to limit the running game. We have to force, as good as Sam Hartman is, we have to force him to beat us with his arm. We have a good secondary. I think we have the ability to pressure a Sam Hartman, but if we can't stop the run, we have no hope in this game as a team, in my opinion.
Yeah, and you basically hit the nail on the head. And I think it would be great because we talked about how opportunistic Notre Dame's defense is at creating turnovers, and I definitely expect them to create some on Saturday, just knowing what we've seen from this Clemson offense so far. You got to find a way to equalize it. I mean, Sam Hartman has been a little bit careless with the ball in recent weeks.
Yep.
The receivers have not helped him out
they have not. They have not, and that's probably one of the few places I feel like Clemson has the advantage. Is the wide. Honestly, both teams have that advantage. Is the secondary versus the opposing team's wide receivers, but. You have to find a way to equalize it. If you're going to turn the ball over, you got to make up for it and create turnovers yourselves. And maybe if that means taking a risk here and there, I'm kind of okay with that because I really think if Clemson loses the turnover battle, there's no shot. They really have no shot in this game, and it's going to take. On the other side of the ball, it's going to take your cleanest game so far. Like you're going to need. Like Florida State efficiency from Clemson in this game, and we haven't seen that offense, since that game. And obviously, you still turned the ball over and gave 7 points to the other team in that game, and that's going to be a problem. It's going to be and that's something that this team is going to have to find it within them. And maybe Tyler from Spartanburg gave this team the motivation they needed. I don't know. Maybe Dabo has. Yeah, can we see something completely different? But I am not loving this matchup on.
No, I'm not loving this matchup at all. And Jordan, let me tell you one of the big stats that kind of came across me this week for me not loving this matchup between Notre Dame and Clemson is Notre Dame is third nationally in interceptions and passing yards. They got 13 interceptions on the season, and they only allow 158.6 yards per game passing. That does not bode well for a Clemson team because Clemson has not consistently been able to run the ball well. And with our offensive line woes, what confidence can I have in this Clemson squad going forward when it comes to running the ball? I have no confidence with them in running the ball. We consistently, play musical chairs when it comes to, the offensive line. We now have our backup, if you will, left tackle at right guard because no one else can get the job done. And he played, I think, pretty much every snap last game against NC State at right guard. And although it was maybe a little bit better, it still wasn't great. And we still don't have answers at offensive line. And although the coaching staff is like, that's our best five, if that's our best five at offensive line, I mean, our problems are deep at offensive line right now. And I don't think we have any big answers. I don't think we're gonna have an epiphany at any point in time this season along the offensive line.
And is this all coaching? Because those guys are pretty highly ranked recruits you guys have. Is it all coaching, you think? Or
I mean,
we've had this conversation. We don't really know ourselves in some ways.
Yeah.
I mean, I just it has to fall on coaching at the end of the day. But I mean, you have to wonder. But yeah, I mean, this is on paper. Clemson, from a talent standpoint, they've recruited well on the offensive line the last few years, and the room isn't full of a bunch of walk-on level talent. They have 4 and 5 stars on the offensive line.
Yeah,
they're not.
I mean the offensive line is not barren of talent. So to your question, Will, at the end of the day, you got to kind of pin it on coaching at this point because, I mean, what else do you pin it on? Do you think the more likely scenario is that Clemson missed on every single highly recruited offensive line that they recruited, or the coaching staff isn't developing those players? I tend to lean on the side of the coaching staff is not developing those players,
especially seeing the regression from some of the guys we saw.
Yeah, I mean, you got a guy, you got a guy in Blake Miller who was a great player last season as a freshman. And all he's done in his sophomore campaign is regressed as an offensive lineman. So to me, it's coaching at this point at Clemson. There's a lack of development at Clemson right now, and that is one of the biggest problems that Clemson has as a program, as a coaching staff. We got a ton of talent on the team, but they're not being developed. When you see players be better in their freshman season than they are in their sophomore season, you have to start looking towards the coaching staff. There's nowhere else to look. I mean, at the end of the day, how do they come in your program and perform better in a freshman season than they do in a sophomore season when they've been in your program for 12 to 18 months? It's mind-boggling and it's puzzling as a Clemson fan, and you got to wonder that what is happening in the Clemson coaching staff right now. And you look at the Clemson coaching staff specifically on the offensive side of the ball, and you see a bunch of people that don't have a ton of experience outside of Dabo giving them, an opportunity at Clemson to coach football. And when you look at those things, you start to wonder that, maybe he gave too many people their first opportunity, and maybe that is hindering the development of some of these 5- and 4-star players that Clemson is consistently bringing in.
Mhm.
Yeah, nailed it. It's kind of how I feel. Um, but yeah, and that's kind of what's shown throughout the season, and that's why that doesn't give me much reason to be confident about this game.
No.
But
I mean, as my guy D-Rock Irish said, like I just have too much respect for the Clemson program to be like 100% confident in victory in this game.
yeah, I mean that.
Yeah, you guys are gonna be like having your back against the wall. Like it's similar to what the Irish were last year.
Good
It's
point.
just flipped. So I don't know. I'm like not going to be 100% confident in this game until I see until maybe like the second half if the Irish pull away.
Yeah.
Let's kind of talk about some key players in this game. Well, actually, before that, let's hit on some of the injury situation for both teams. Obviously, it has not been great news for either team, really, injury wise. Obviously, Mitchell Evans, one of the top tight ends in the country, is out. In this game. I guess that helps Clemson a little bit. But
I mean, I think I'm confident in Holden Stace, though. Like Holden Stace, the back. I mean, he gets a lot of playing time at tight end as well, and he also leads the team in touchdowns. So I do believe,
he's really good. He was a top 200 kid, coming out, something like that. Yeah, he's like that. And I mean, Notre Dame always recruits well. And I even said, like, I even tweeted, I was like, when the news came out about Mitchell Evans, I was like, it doesn't really matter. Notre Dame is going to have some guy that we haven't even really.
David Sherwood might also get some more time. He got a touchdown in the NC State game. He hasn't gotten that much playing time, but he might get some PT in Death Valley this week.
And the coaching on that side of the ball, obviously, Jared Parker, being the offensive coordinator, but he still is a really good tight ends coach, and he's gotten a lot out of that position at Notre Dame, and I still expect the tight ends to be a heavy part of the game plan, and that's going to be an issue. And then on the Clemson side of things, obviously news came out today. Marcus Tate likely going to be out for a while. Clemson starting left guard, not good. Been Clemson's best offensive lineman, I'd say this year. And left tackle, starting left tackle Colin Sadler is going to be questionable for this game. So, I mean, you have to.
God. Oh my God!
And also, true freshman standout wide receiver Tyler Brown is still nursing an ankle injury, and he got hurt in the NC State game. Something, I think he got hit in the eye or something.
Yeah, this ain't gonna be good for the Tigers. Look at that injury report and tell me this is gonna be good for the Tigers. I mean, look. This is an offensive line that is already underperforming, and you just mentioned two key people that were performing, somewhat okay, that will be out for this game. Who's going to fill those spots for the Tigers? Who's going to fill them?
Well, I'm wondering. I mean, because it's going to be interesting because the depth chart has Trent Howard listed as Marcus Tate's backup. But you also have Mitchell Mays, who has been kind of the next man up for a lot of the year. So I don't know what the plan is. Maybe they stick Mitchell Mays in at left guard and not Trent Howard. I don't know, but neither one has been particularly good this year. What do you do at left tackle? I mean, do you put Tristan Lay back at left tackle? And
I mean, you have to at that point. Maybe you got to put Tristan Lay out there.
Yeah, if Sadler doesn't play, and we didn't even mention Will Shipley. Still, he went through concussion protocol, and he's still he's questionable for this game.
Will Shipley's not playing in this game. He's not playing.
I'd be a little bit surprised, but I don't know because I can't remember the last time a Clemson player has been in concussion protocol and then missed the next game. They typically come back.
I don't think Will Shipley's
if it was during the previous game. But,
I don't think Will Shipley's playing in this game. That's just my opinion.
So do you guys think that
I could be wrong?
All the carries? Is he a type of back that can play play the whole game.
I mean, we think
Absolutely.
he can be.
Absolutely.
But we haven't really had a game where he's been the feature back.
And that was one of my issues with Dabo Sweeney's press conference this week is, I think a reporter asked him, a Clemson reporter asked him this week about, Phil Maffa's 2 touchdowns against NC State in the red zone, and that, hey, are you guys gonna use Phil Maffa more in the red zone now that he has scored 2 touchdowns versus NC State? And he kind of came back with the canned response of, we believe in both of our running backs, Will Shipley and Phil Maffa. We've used Phil Maffa. He fumbled versus, I haven't heard more about Phil Maffa fumbling against Duke in week 1 than I have this season. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous how much that fumble is held against him this season. But
especially
at the end of the
Shipley has
day,
fumbled more.
you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
Shipley has fumbled way more than Maffa, in my opinion, this season. And I would love to see Phil Maffa get equal carries. And one of the things that bothered me about Dabo's press conference this week is he was like, we try to keep those guys even on their carries. We try to keep them even on their production. That couldn't be further from the truth. Look at the carries that Will Shipley gets versus the carries that Phil Maffa gets. I wouldn't be surprised if Phil Maffa transfers after this season. I would not be surprised at all. I hope he doesn't, but I would not be surprised if he does, because of the lack of carries that this dude literally is a great running back, and he gets sometimes 5, 6, 7 carries a game, and Will Shipley will get 15 carries a game. So to say that they're trying to keep it even is just mind-boggling to me. It's not the case. And the fact that he comes out there and says stuff like that is just crazy to me. Like, it's just not true. They're not even. They're not even close to being even on carries for the season. Will Shipley is so much ahead of him.
Yeah, especially when you look at the yards per carry between the two, it's even more puzzling because
Phil Maffa's at like six plus yards a carry.
Yep.
And Will Shipley's at like 4, like 3 or 4 yards a carry.
Yeah.
So it's mind-boggling as a Clemson fan to be like, how is Will Shipley getting 15 carries a game and Phil Maffa's getting 5 carries a game? Like, what is happening there? Like, why is that a thing? So, I'm not saying I'm not hating on Will Shipley at all. I think he's a great running back, but I think those carries should be a little bit more even than they are. And for Dabo Sweeney to come out and say that we keep them even, it's just mind-boggling. You clearly don't know the stats because they're not even at all. They're not even close to being even.
Right.
Well, some Irish news. Jaden Greathouse is coming back this week. Played Klubnik's high school teammate, so it'll be fun to see.
Yeah,
that.
Somebody I wanted Clemson to go after, but we, could have cut it off for him. But
we could have.
He's been a true freshman standout for Notre Dame.
What do you think Chris Tyree's kind of role will be in this game? I know Dabo talked about him in his weekly press conference this week about his kind of transition from running back to kind of slot receiver, and when he gets out in the open and he catches the ball, he's more of a running back than he is a wide receiver, just because of his background. So do you see that being kind of a plus for Notre Dame this week?
The reason we have mountain wide receiver is the Irish team speed at receiver is not very good. There's really not many natural wide receivers that can just go right past a DB. So that last year, Braden Lindsey was that guy, but he ran out of eligibility. Mm-hmm. So we kind of had to have someone to fill that role, like just a flanker, just go deep.
Yeah.
And Chris Tyree's done pretty good. Sometimes he's had a couple drops, which were costly. Like his drop against Louisville, I felt like if he caught that pass, maybe the Irish end up winning the game. But he had a great touchdown against Pitt. Against USC. So I definitely think he might catch a couple of screen passes, but he's probably just going to mostly run deep or run middle.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys mostly try to get him paired up on linebackers, or kind of what's the scheme for that guy?
I mean, sometimes linebackers, sometimes a corner. It all depends.
Okay.
Yeah, he's definitely someone you can't let beat you. Because that speed is he's elite. Like he's got track speed.
That worries me about the Clemson linebackers and our inability to cover, kind of some people out of the backfield. I think that could be, kind of a weak point for Notre Dame to exploit this week, particularly because of our inability to cover wheel routes and other things out of the backfield that we've kind of struggled with this season with Barrett Carter and Jeremiah Trotter this year. So
one guy that the Irish always have been this year have been trying to get going is Tobias Merriweather. He's sort of this very similar player to Adam Randall for the Tigers.
Yeah,
the talent is there, but he just can't seem to put it all together during the games. He's been good. He's been a good blocker. Like the receivers are all pretty good blockers. He's been doing that well, but he hasn't necessarily made as many big plays as the fans have wanted. But he did have a touchdown. Big catch against Pitt, so I'm hoping that him and Sam's connection's a bit better.
Yeah.
But I would say the receiver that's probably had the best connection with him is the other. Well, we have 3 receivers that are freshmen, but one of them is hurt.
Yeah.
But I feel like Rico Flores also will have a couple catches in this game, the other freshman receiver. So those are the two freshman receivers are probably going to get the most catches.
So Will, what is the kind of the Notre Dame fan base's kind of attitude on the season? Where are you guys at? I know Clemson, we are 4-4, so as there's been a lot of noise around the Clemson program this year. You've heard Dabo's comments, you've heard Clemson fans' comments, all that kind of stuff. What is kind of the noise around the Notre Dame program? Because I know you guys had some lofty expectations coming into this season. So what are kind of the Notre Dame fans, expectations, or just kind of, I guess, revisionist expectations this season now that you guys do have 2 losses on the season?
Well, there is disappointment in the offense. Just like we were hoping that the receivers would play a bit better. We were hoping that the O-line would be just as good as last year's O-line. So I feel like we're just not a championship team right now.
Yeah.
But hopefully with the recruits coming in, especially Cam Williams coming in at receiver next year, there's hope that will get better. But if the Irish can just break into that New Year's Six Bowl and win it, still think it'll be a successful season. And I think Irish fans will be pretty happy with how this season went. Even though it wasn't the top prize, like that'd still be a huge accomplishment because that's something that Brian Kelly never did. He's never won a big bowl game. So if Marcus can do that, it would definitely be a successful season. And the goal for most Irish fans is to be able to win a national championship or be in it with like the Bama's and the Georgias in the next 5 years, because the recruiting has definitely gotten better under Marcus Freeman.
Yeah.
So we're hoping that the team will start to head on an upswing this year.
Okay. Yeah, no, that makes sense. And then heading into this game specifically, what do you think the impact of Mitchell Evans being out is going to have on this game? Is that going to be a big effect for Sam Hartman having a downfield option, or
I think it's possibly like he might not trust Holden States as much, but he still has the most touchdown receptions, so I feel like it won't be a big impact.
Okay.
Honestly,
So you think that's a little overblown?
I think it's overblown in my opinion.
Okay. Good. All right.
I would say so too. And given, I mean, Clemson this year has had starting quarterbacks be out for the opposing team and not been able to take advantage of it. So, yeah, I don't think it's that big of it. And again, Notre Dame recruits so well at tight end, and they have impact players
Yeah, man.
all along that room. So,
they seem to always have a tight end that gives the Tigers a problem.
yeah,
nine wide receivers for Notre Dame have been drafted in the past 13 drafts.
Well,
Nine tight ends. I meant to say.
I was about to say. I was like,
yeah, my bad. Nine tight ends. Yeah.
That's pretty impressive. Yeah. I wish Clemson had that kind of run, especially. I mean, the fans have had so many frustrations over the years with lack of tight end usage. So,
well, Jake Brenningstool is a beast. I'm worried about our linebackers covering him.
Yeah, he is. If we would freaking throw the ball to him.
Well, I mean, we have the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, so, the last 2 weeks we have. So yeah, to your point, Jordan. Yeah, we've definitely thrown the ball to him this past 2 weeks, but the 6 weeks leading up to this, we kind of ignored him. So
yeah,
hopefully it continues. Hopefully the Jake Brenningstool saga continues for the Clemson Tigers, and he can continue to exploit the middle of the field and get 8+ catches a game. But
yeah,
I don't know. At this point, I don't know what to expect from this Clemson offense. At the end of the day, like, just being honest with you, Jordan, and you, Will, like, I don't know what to expect from this Clemson offense.
I'm scared of if that Florida State offense comes back. I think the Irish are in for a battle.
Yeah,
that's a big if. That's a big if. And last thing before we kind of give our score predictions, we'll look at the spread and over under, and then give our score predictions. But special teams, it was a big part of the game last year. But I think the goal for both teams this year is definitely kind of don't lose us the game, and it's been definitely been more of a problem for Clemson than Notre Dame this year. And at least Notre Dame has they have a somewhat reliable kicker. And
he's gotten better. In the beginning, he was bad, but he has gotten better as the season's gone on. Yeah,
and I mean, he's got a leg on him. So, but that's something that Notre Dame has been really, really good at, through multiple coaching staffs. And this year is no different. They're well coached on that side of the ball. They're not like overly dynamic in the return game and stuff like that, but
the return game's gotten better though. Like was Chris Tyree is good on the returns, as is
he returned a kick punt last week. So they're really good. I think one thing that has gotten better for Clemson on the Clemson side of things is punting. Aiden Swanson had a really miserable time up in South Bend last year. But I think he's played a lot better, and he's honestly been probably the most consistent part of the of special teams. And it's sad that
much of a return game. So
isn't it sad that Aiden Swanson's been kind of a highlight for Clemson this season?
Yeah.
Not that I want to hate on Aiden Swanson, because I probably gave him way more hate last year than I probably should have. He's been really good this season as a punter, but at the end of the day, I don't know, man. I mean, you can tell me if I'm wrong, Jordan. I think this is a bad matchup for Clemson, man. I just really do. Like this offensive line is reeling. They're not good. We're scrambling to find our best five, quote unquote. This Notre Dame front is something serious on both sides of the ball. We have injuries, and we are very thin at defensive end. So I don't trust our ability to get pressure on Sam Hartman. So just bringing up those specific issues along the front seven, basically, of the offense and defense. I don't think this is a good matchup for the Tigers. I really don't, and I'm struggling to kind of rationalize a win for the Tigers
Mhm.
for this game. I really am.
Yeah, I'm with you.
We're kind of reeling right now as a team, and I understand that there's a certain level of kind of circling the wagons and us against the world, but this is a team last year that embarrassed us physically embarrassed us for the first time in a very long time as a Clemson program. And I don't see anything this year that has given me confidence that that same thing will not happen again. And I'm scared because it's coming to Death Valley, and the last thing that I want is for us to be physically embarrassed in our own stadium. And I
Yeah.
think there's a potential for that to happen. I hope it doesn't, but I think there's a potential for that to happen because this Notre Dame team is for real. Um, they are far better than us on offense, and I think they have a comparable defense to us.
Yep, I'm with you, and that's why I don't have a whole lot of confidence in this game. Again, Clemson is really talented, and wouldn't surprise me if this game was competitive. But
Yeah.
I don't know. There's things about this matchup that I just hate. I don't think this is a great matchup. And we'll see how it goes. You mentioned Jaden Greathouse. On the Clemson side of things, Ronan Hannafin might be getting some burn at receiver this game
Oh,
because of some of the injuries. So that'll be a interesting
that'll be
storyline as
fun.
well.
That'll be fun.
So we'll see how that goes. He's
We're,
mainly
we're,
on
we're,
special teams this year. So
we're literally bringing out redshirt freshmen at this point.
I
At
mean,
wide
hey,
receiver.
Notre Dame's doing it too at receiver, man.
Yeah, well,
the receivers, the situation for both teams isn't ideal, but that's kind of how it is these days. But let's go ahead and let's look at the spread and then give our score predictions.
let's do it.
I think right as of now, it is Notre Dame is a 3-point favorite, road favorite, over under 44.5. Really interesting line, and one that probably is begging a lot of people to take Notre Dame, and understandably so. I really don't know what to make of this line, because it just if I were just a neutral fan, if I was betting this game, I would be really, really put off. I wouldn't touch it.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah,
if I, being a Clemson fan and having seen this team every single week and watch them play,
bet the Irish,
yeah,
dude.
I don't think there's much overthinking this. So with that being said, I'll go ahead and give my score prediction. I think this is a double-digit win for the Irish. I think Clemson's defense will give them enough problems to give them a chance, but just knowing what I've seen from this Clemson team, the turnover issues, the lack of ability to run the ball, Cade Klubnik's erratic play, and this defense isn't perfect, and they can get worn down. Just knowing that, I think that Notre Dame is more than happy to play in a rock fight and kind of grind it out type game. They've done that multiple times this year. So I'm feeling something like 24-13 Notre Dame. Comfortable win. I don't think this Clemson team can score. I just don't have confidence that they'll be able to score a lot of points, and that's kind of where I am. But wouldn't surprise me if the game was close. And I think Clemson can win, but they need a lot of things to go well, and they need to do things probably the best they have all season.
Yeah. I'll go ahead.
Hold on, let me add him back.
Sorry.
All good. I'm assuming your laptop died or something.
Laptop died. I thought it would have given me the low battery notification, but it didn't.
Yeah, it's all good. I'll go ahead and give my my score prediction. What was your score prediction, Jordan?
27. What did I say? No, 24-13 Notre Dame.
24-13 Notre Dame. I'm just writing this down. Yeah, so I'll go ahead and with my score prediction. Look, I've made it clear throughout this, kind of entire episode that I don't believe in the Clemson Tigers right now. I don't believe in their ability to win games right now. I think they are a program that is reeling. I think they're a program that is in free fall. You can call me a 1.5 percenter all you want. I really don't care at this point. At the end of the day, this may be what Clemson needs to get back to their winning, you know, their winning ways that they were before. But at the end of the day, I think this is a bad matchup for the Clemson Tigers. I think that the Notre Dame defensive line is going to reset the line of scrimmage far too consistently against this offensive line. And I think the reverse is the case for this, Notre Dame offensive line. I think we have some injuries along the defensive line. I think we have some depth issues that will prevent us from getting the adequate pressure on Sam Hartman that will require us that would be required of us to win this game. So for all of those reasons, I'm going Notre Dame 31, Clemson 17.
Yeah.
I think Clemson loses. I think Notre Dame wins easily. I think Clemson loses in massive fashion in this game. I don't think it's particularly a good matchup for this Clemson Tiger team. And, I think we go on a 3-game losing streak for the first time in, God knows how long for this Clemson team. I know we haven't lost back-to-back games since 2010. You're going to have to look back further than that to see this Clemson Tiger team lose 3 games in a row, but it's going to happen this week. Notre Dame is going to beat Clemson in Clemson, and I don't think it's going to be particularly close.
I mean, I'm not quite as optimistic for the Irish as you guys are. I don't know. I'm still worried about your DBs against our receivers. That's the most worrying thing. And I know you guys have the fact that you guys do have injuries at D-line makes me much more optimistic about us controlling the line of scrimmage on the offensive side of the ball. But I'm going to stick with my 27-17 prediction. I mean, I do think this would, even though Clemson right now isn't in a great spot, this would still be a huge victory for the program. And I know Notre Dame's looking at a couple of the guys that are coming for Clemson. So hopefully for the recruiting side of things, that helps out there too. But yeah, this would be a huge win for the Irish. And yeah, if Cade keeps it clean, I do think that the Tigers can win this game. But
he won't.
Yeah.
He won't.
Yeah. We have not seen that Cade Klubnik since.
Look, Clemson couldn't keep a clean game if their life depended on it at this point. I expect Clemson to turn the ball over at least 2 times against the Irish. And for those reasons, that's why I predicted a 31-17 win for the Irish, because Clemson is incapable at this point in the season, in my opinion, of playing a clean game. They're just incapable. Like it's not possible for the Clemson Tigers to play a clean game. It's just not possible. And there's nothing that Clemson has done so far this season that would give you confidence that they would. So for those reasons, I'm going 31-17 Notre Dame. And look, I don't take any joy in picking against my Tigers. This Jordan, is this the first time that we've picked against the Tigers since we've been doing this show?
I think this is the first time we both have. I mean, I picked against
Yeah.
Clemson and against Florida State earlier this year, but
Yeah, so this is the first time that we picked against the Tigers together, and I, I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think it's really controversial at this point. The Clemson Tigers are bad. This is not a good season, and there's going to be changes that need to be made in the offseason. We'll see what Dabo's willing to do.
I'm hoping you guys don't steal Chancey Stuckey from us. That would be a downer, but I think that would be a big pickup.
Dabo was talking about him in the press conference, kind of lathering him up a little bit. So I don't know. That might be in the card.
He probably would. If Dabo offered him the job, he'd probably leave. Yeah. Unfortunately for you guys.
Yeah. I mean, they haven't developed like as well as I'd hoped, but the recruiting's just been so good from him. So
yeah,
hopefully they develop.
And that's kind of what gives me pause. I'm not like all the way. I'm not all the way on the higher Chancey Stuckey train, and honestly, I'm not. Tyler Grisham has been definitely a subject of criticism within the fan base, but honestly, he's not the first person he's not the first position coach I'm looking at. If
Me either.
Making changes at this point. I mean, I still have questions, but I'm not nearly as disappointed with how his room has played this year than I have some others.
But at the end of the day, this Dabo Sweeney has taken far too many chances on people that have a lack of experience on this offensive staff specifically. And because of that, I think it has, just snowballed into this situation where there's a lot of people that on this offensive staff that don't necessarily know what they're doing. And I think Dabo kind of went a little too far on, just giving people opportunities versus, checking their resume, if you will.
Yeah. And I think that's the right thing. Because, I mean, every coach, like Dabo's not the first person to, promote from within or give guys opportunities that have been within the program. I mean, that happens everywhere. But
absolutely,
when you do it at so many key positions, like especially at positions that are so critical to how the game plays out, like offensive line, you can't have inexperience at offensive line coach. I think you can't afford to have that because that is for most offenses, the offense goes as the offensive line goes, unless you have just an elite quarterback that can mask some of those issues like Clemson has had in the past. So just you cannot afford to have inexperience. You can't have a guy there that doesn't have that kind of experience and is not developing the talent that you have. Because if it was a talent issue, like I feel like if Clemson just wasn't getting the guys, then we'd be talking about having a whole different conversation. But offensive line is a hard position to evaluate, granted, but there's no way you're missing on all these guys.
No.
It's going to happen with Notre Dame again. Like, it is expected for Al Golden to go to the NFL and cornerback coach Mike Mickens to become the DC. So I'm hoping
but
that
Mike Mickens has been in the industry for a while, and
I'm hoping that goes well.
And he's done really good at his position. Like those are
he's been a lead as a cornerback coach. I just hope he's a great play caller.
Yeah, and obviously there are some questions. That always promoting from within is always a gamble. Even with guys that have experience. So that's why but that's kind of a judgment call. But Marcus Freeman, to his credit, has he's gotten guys. Being an inexperienced head coach himself, he went and got guys that have done it at a high level. And obviously the issues with the offensive coordinator hire last year, that wasn't really his fault. But everywhere else he's went and got guys with experience and got guys with a low, because he himself doesn't have a lot of experience. And that's what Dabo did when he was interim and when he was early on in his coaching tenure at Clemson. He went and got Chad Morris, who while he he was a very known commodity, and he was doing something, with his offense that was pretty revolutionary at the time and pretty innovative. He went and got him. He went and got Brent Venables, who had been a defensive coordinator for over a decade and had really great defenses at Oklahoma. And obviously you saw what happened. And he gave guys chances along the way, promoting Tony Elliott and Jeff Scott to offensive coordinator, but he still had loads of experience around them in that offensive coaching staff. Robbie Caldwell had been an offensive line coach for nearly 30 years when those guys were hired. They're just, you don't have that kind of experience in the coach. Clemson doesn't have that much coaching experience, that kind of coaching experience just across the board in this staff right now. And it's kind of hard to not point at that and see, make that connection and that correlation between the results on the field. So it's going to be it's going to be a really interesting game on Saturday. Well, just kind of to see how it plays out. Obviously, me and Tiger Paul Graven aren't super confident in this being a Clemson victory, but crazier things have happened, and I guess the line is that short, for a reason. I mean, Clemson could possibly, who knows? Maybe they do have a type of Renaissance game, and they kind of play up to the competition, but I just don't have much confidence heading into this game for just having seen this team. I don't really see that. I don't see this team turning a corner, this late in the year. You've kind of seen what you've seen, and considering the personnel issues, the injuries at this point, I just am not confident in this game, and I think Notre Dame is just the better coach team right now.
I mean, this is the most complete Irish defense in a while, so definitely gives me some faith, but
not many weaknesses, and even the defensive line has really gotten after it. Secondary obviously is elite. I mean, I think the linebackers have been, they're not like world beaters, but they're very well coached, and they've played really well, especially against the run this year. So it's kind of hard to be there. There's not really much to exploit, and when you're Clemson is as shorthanded as they are with weapons, offensive weapons at this point, they're gonna have to get creative and find some ways to move the ball. It's going to be a tough matchup. But with that being said, let's kind of I think we can turn it to the comment section and kind of see what these guys are saying about the matchup, because we do have Notre Dame and Clemson and an Oregon fan. We have a South Carolina fan, Florida State fan. Yeah, we've got a nice mix of fan bases in the chat tonight, so let's kind of go through that. Let's see. Notre Dame 2164. He says if Clemson doesn't turn over the ball, they absolutely can win. However, they could not turn the ball over and still get beat straight up too. Yeah, and I think that's a very valid point. Yeah, if Clemson turns the ball over, especially if they're not getting those turnovers back, there's no chance they're winning this game. And yeah, like you said, I mean, Clemson could play a clean game and still lose. So a lot has to go right, I think, for Clemson to outright win this game. If they play a clean game, I could totally see this being a close game, but I still wouldn't feel confident about them winning, because we've seen Clemson in tight competitive games too, and they haven't really finished that well. So I'm just, unless you're playing a team like Wake who just can't score at all, this Notre Dame offense is way better than that. Isaac Smith says, wonder what the record is for scooping scores given up by a team. Clemson has to be close this year. Well, and there really hasn't even been a ton of scooping scores. I think there's been two. There was one against Charleston Southern, and then the one against Florida State.
Florida State one with Deloche.
Yeah. I think those were the only two. But there have been a lot of scoops and almost scored or gotten into opponent territory, and I think that's kind of been a problem as well. because you just given the team good field position. And then how many times have you just fumbled the ball on a zone read and handoff? Like there's just a miscommunication. Cade pulls too late and they fumble. Like that's happened multiple times this year. We've had there's just a lot. You can't have that. D-Rock Irish is he's suspicious. He says Vegas knows something. And that's kind of been the sentiment that I've always been like. I'm always wary about games like this because it's like you look at that line and you're like, that's interesting. I mean, even going back to the Florida State game, that line was, I think, Florida State -1, and given how Clemson had played, there was no reason to feel like they would. That game was going to be close, but ultimately it was. I mean, Florida State still covered because it was overtime, but it was the way the game played out was indicative of that.
I mean, I picked the Tigers straight up in that game.
Yeah, I feel like you were on the right side. I felt bad for people that took Clemson.
Well,
because Clemson, they had their opportunities and just gave that one away. So, which is unfortunate. But hey, I guess at the end of the day, even if Clemson wins that game, I don't think the team is that fundamentally different because they're just not that they're not playing all that well. But who knows? I can't say for sure. Maybe that win does change in the course of the season, but I don't know. I don't feel like that game would fundamentally change what this team is. Still capable of turning the ball over. Still capable of of not scoring, missing on red zone opportunities, missing field goals. Mm-hmm. That kind of is what it is. Let's see. Just people talking about Taj Boyd. Yeah.
Taj Boyd was probably the first Clemson quarterback I remember seeing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of the guy that got it started for Clemson, right?
Totally.
That was the guy that, kind of, put Dabo Sweeney on the map, if you will.
Oh, let me hit this super chat from Steel Gamble. Thank you. Sorry for missing it. I don't know how it's 8. Okay, it hasn't been too long. Thank you for the $5 Steel Gamble. He says, how many goal line turnovers will we have this game? Betting line right now is 3. Rumor has. Yeah, I wish Vegas would do a prop for goal line turnover. Like that would be. I'd be making a lot. I would have made a lot of money this year.
I mean,
I would have bet.
My Irish have a top 5 red zone defense, so
that's not good. That's not good for the Tigers, Will.
Yeah, no, and this team that is Clemson, when they play defenses that can get after the quarterback and force turnovers and are good in the red zone. I mean, I guess any team will struggle, but Clemson particularly, they have. That's a recipe for disastrous results, like goal line fumbles and stuff like that. So,
that's not good for the Tigers. We will probably surpass that total right there. If I had to guess, I think the Tigers would have 2+ turnovers in this game because that's kind of what they've done so far this season. And why would we expect anything less? So this offense, for the most part, has put this defense in a lot of compromising situations, and that's kind of been the catalyst for some of the criticism for this defense so far this season. Is why can't they stop teams when the ball is turned over? Well, They can't stop teams when the ball's turned over because, in my opinion, they're only human. And, they see the same things that the fans see, and they see that this offense cannot get it done. So, regardless of whether they stop someone or not, they're probably going to lose a game. And that's just kind of where I am with it.
Okay. I didn't see where the origin of the Taj Boyd conversations were happening. Hard Take says Cade reminds me of Taj Boyd with the weird interceptions and fumbles, but Boyd had some insane receivers. I can't get behind this take. I do. Boyd had his moments in big games where he did not. Obviously, 2013 FSU was pretty bad in any game he played against South Carolina. But beyond that, Taj Boyd was he wasn't a particularly turnover prone quarterback, and he put up a lot of. He made up for it with a lot of big time throws. His deep ball was one of the best I've seen from a Clemson quarterback. Just extremely accurate. And he was so effective in the QB run game. I don't. I think Taj Boyd, Taj Boyd in this offense would be doing a lot better than Cade Klubnik. But that's just me. I can't make that. I see where you're coming from, but Taj Boyd had so much good that you took the bad. You took the bad with the good. There's not a whole lot of good from Cade Klubnik so far this year, and that doesn't mean that can't change. And Cade is still, he's a talented football player, but he's not.
Yeah, he's like Brian Driscoll, one of the ND guys I follow. He said that he reminds me of like a Colt McCoy. So Colt had a tough start with Texas, and then he really got it going.
Well, that is an interesting comparison, and I can get down with that. If Cade turns out to be a Colt McCoy, then all of this will end up being worth it. So
for sure,
I can get with that. I hope Brian is right, and I like Brian a lot. I think he does good work over there on the Irish Breakdown. So hope he's right. I respect his football acumen. So hope that one comes true. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, and to your point, he had great receivers. We can't, discount that. But he put on, he threw the ball extremely well. He got the ball to those receivers. It wasn't like he was just. I mean, he would throw it up at times, but some of those, some of the throws he would make were dots. There's always that. It seems like every month on Twitter, Sammy Watkins highlights from the Orange Bowl against Ohio State, circle around. And you watch, Sammy was absolutely one of the most electric players in school history. I don't think we'll ever see a receiver quite like Sammy Watkins at Clemson again. But some of the throws that Taj Boyd was making in that game were incredible, just perfect, on the money, only Sammy would be able to get it type of throws.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I remember Taj Boyd. Obviously that really just not beating South Carolina was the only stain on his legacy, and obviously those performances were not great. But I think the team as a whole seemed to crumble when they played those South Carolina teams in those years. So I don't think it was just him either.
So. So let's talk a little bit about but before we continue with the comments, thoughts on Tyler from Spartanburg. I think we need to talk about this before we kind of turn the page of tonight, because I don't really want to address it after tonight. So Jordan, you can give your thoughts, and even Will, you can give your thoughts as an outside fan base and as somebody looking from the outside in on Dabo Sweeney and kind of how he runs the Clemson program and how he responds to Clemson fans, and your thoughts on Tyler as a whole and kind of how he approached it. So, what are your guys' thoughts, Jordan? I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on first of all, how Tyler approached the question, and then, secondly, on how Dabo responded to Tyler's question on the radio show?
Yeah. it was it was really wild seeing this play out, like it, just seeing it kind of blow up the way it did in real time. It was something to behold. It was kind of like, wow, like, because initially just the quote was being spread around, Dabo, from Dabo's response, and it looked really, really bad. And then obviously the audio was released later on, and then you were like, okay, there's a little bit more to this than we thought. But
Right.
I'll say this: Tyler absolutely went about that question in the wrong way. Simply put, like, you don't pocket watch your coach. You don't call into his call-in show and ask him about, and question his salary and, spout Bible verses at him and get personal. And I think that was where I had the issue, because I think the sentiment of a lot of what he said, I think a lot of Clemson fans can, agree with. There were elements of that I think every Clemson fan has some. I won't say every. I don't speak for the fan base, but a lot of Clemson fans, some of the frustrations that they've had, and I think Tyler should have went about that. Should have went about that a lot differently. And you don't. It got because you get personal when you start bringing in his faith and all that. That's something Dabo takes very, very seriously. You don't,
right?
And that's not something you do. If you're going to talk about football, talk about football. And so I think that was my main problem. And on the Dabo side of things, I think in ways I think he was justified in how he responded, and in some ways he's not. Like I think ideally you want your coach to just be, sorry, okay, Tyler, thanks for the call, move on, and just not even address it. But I don't blame Dabo for getting upset.
Yeah,
I'm taking that personally, because that was, at a certain point, I think no matter how much money you make, I don't think it excuses people from, being, decent people. Just because someone makes a lot of money doesn't, give me the right to I can just say whatever I want and be disrespectful. If you if you want to have a conversation, have a conversation. But I think Dabo definitely probably could have handled that a lot better. And so I think Tyler was, I think some of the things Tyler said about, Dabo, sort of, questioning Tyler sort of questioning how Dabo has kind of changed since the national championships and stuff like that. And kind of the, some of the decisions he's made. I think all of that is perfectly valid. I just thought the lecture and all the stuff about, pride coming before the fall and saying stuff like that, and, reciting Proverbs at him, like that's it just sounds like you're being an asshole. And I think that's kind of why that came across the way it did. And that's why Dabo was as indignant as he was. And so it was, there's everybody, I think there's a little bit of Tyler in all of us, but you can't go about it. You can't ask those questions the way you did. Like that's at the end of the day, you can't do that. And I think Dabo was, he said what I think a lot of coaches feel a lot of times, but don't feel like they can say. And maybe he went a little bit he went a little bit too far. But I think both sides were in the right and in the wrong. During that whole exchange.
I just think it's insane that those types of shows exist, man. Like any person can just call into like a huge college football coach.
Yeah.
Like I didn't even know that was a thing before this whole thing happened.
They have Clemson has a call screener, but like usually they don't let. I'm surprised they let him go Tyler go as long as they did, because usually like in other coaches shows, like. If the way that Tyler was talking, like they would have ended that real quick, but I think Don Munson was the call screener, and he let him go on, and Dabo didn't interrupt him either. So I was like, all right.
I mean, that would have never happened under BK. BK would have never done that. I don't know. Maybe they could do one with Marcus. I don't know. That would be interesting for sure.
Yeah. So, kind of my thoughts on it are, a little bit, up and down, I guess, hot and cold on this type of situation. I understand the frustration of Tyler and the reason that he called in and talked to Dabo in the manner that he talked to him. But at the end of the day, you cannot approach people like that. There's nothing that's going to be productive out of a conversation that is had the way that Tyler approached it. So, although I think some of Tyler's points were valid, although I think some of Tyler's points were, you know, some of what a lot of Clemson fans were asking, I think you went about it the entirely wrong way. And I think that's the reason that he got the response that Dabo Sweeney gave him. He attacked Dabo Sweeney on kind of a personal level. You don't count people's pockets. It's not fair to, attack how much an individual makes. I think it's fair some of the criticism that he, you know, slung Dabo Sweeney's way as far as Dabo Sweeney's hires and things like that and the direction of the program. But at the end of the day, counting people's pockets and questioning how much someone earns, I think is just sort of out of bounds, in my opinion. So
Especially someone that's won 2 national championships. Let's
at
it's not
the
like
end of the
he
day,
has that story for no reason.
Dabo Sweeney has brought Clemson more than any other coach has ever brought Clemson football. So for those reasons, he has earned his quote unquote $11.5 million a year. If Tyler is correct on his salary, honestly, I don't know how much Dabo Sweeney makes. But at the end of the day, Dabo Sweeney is paid a handsome salary to make the tough decisions when it comes to Clemson football. And, to be honest, Dabo Sweeney's going to be faced with a lot of tough decisions come this offseason. He's going to have to make some tough decisions when it comes to his coaching staff, when it comes to his players, when it comes to the direction of his program. And I think he knows that. And I think that's part of the reason that he got so defensive. I think that's part of the reason that he got so emotional about what Tyler said is because a lot of it hit home for Dabo Sweeney. A lot of it, Dabo Sweeney, if you injected true serum into him, he would have been like, you know what? A lot of that makes a lot of sense. And although questioning his salary was probably out of bounds, questioning the things that Tyler brought up was not out of bounds. And a lot of it is what a lot of Clemson fans are asking consistently on the internet, in comment sections, and all of that alike. And I don't think it's out of bounds to question the direction of the Clemson program at this point in time, because the Clemson program at this point in time has been consistently in a decline for 3+ years.
Yep.
I mean, that's just a fact of the matter. We have been in a decline for 3 years now. And we are now met with a 4-4 start in the 2023 season, and it's unacceptable. It's unacceptable because of the amount of talent that we have on the roster. And Dabo Sweeney has to accept that. And I know he comes out and he says, I accept full responsibility. But at the end of the day, Dabo, you have to truly accept responsibility for it. You are going to be questioned by fans. That's just the fact of the matter. That's how it works. And I know it gets him emotional. I know it gets him irritated. But at the end of the day, these are fans that are spending 4, 5, 6, sometimes 7, 8, sometimes thousands of plus dollars to come to a single Clemson game. I don't know if people know this out there, but a Clemson game is not exactly a cost effective game to go to.
No.
So for you to sit up there and just act all high and mighty and above everybody and pretend like Clemson fans are spoiled because they are questioning the direction of the program at this point, I think it's off base for Dabo Sweeney at this point. So I think both things can be true. I think Tyler can be off base, and I think Dabo Sweeney can be off base at the same time. I think both of them can be in the wrong. I think Dabo Sweeney is in the wrong because I think he's somewhat out of touch with his fan base at this point in time. I think he doesn't understand how fans feel and how much they're invested in this program and how much emotion that they put into this program. That's why there's money flooded into this Clemson program year in and year out because fans are invested. The university does not pay the bulk of Dabo Sweeney's salary.
Nope.
The boosters and the fans pay the bulk of Dabo Sweeney's salary. So for him to sit here and attack fans, a couple weeks in a row at this point, it looks bad for Dabo Sweeney. It does. It just looks bad. It looks like he's out of touch. It looks like he's, prideful. It looks like he's on his mountaintop and he's circling his wagons and then he's not willing to change. And I know he says that he's convicted in his, he's convicted and not enough people are convicted these days. But at the end of the day, look, Dabo, the Clemson program is in a downward spiral. It's your job to fix it. I think he will fix it. I am not one of these people that are calling for Dabo Sweeney's job in any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah.
But for him to come after a fan in that way, I just think it's ill-advised. And do I think Tyler came at him sideways and he shouldn't come at Dabo Sweeney the way that he did? For sure. So I think both parties are completely wrong in this.
Right.
That's my
these are two grown men, and I don't care. No matter how much money they're making, either one of them is making. They're both responsible for how they conduct themselves, and so that was not a great interaction overall from a publicity standpoint.
Right.
No matter how you look at it. But there are things that both both of them were right about. And so that's why I'm like. Yeah, definitely, and you mentioned like the fired. There's not a whole lot of them, but there's a small sect that are upset with how things are going to the point where they're like fire Dabo. It would take.
That's ridiculous.
I'm a long way from that kind of talk. It would take. It would. I don't even know what it would take. But maybe I would know it when we get there. But that's not even crossing my mind.
No.
I think you give Dabo the opportunity. He's he's brought so much from a financial standpoint, from a publicity standpoint, from a stature and I don't know, a relevant standpoint. Dabo has elevated not just the football program, but the university in a way that nobody else has in the history of the school. Yeah. Like all the money that
one more Clemson question here for me.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I know so you guys think that Dabo will definitely dip into the portal a bit this offseason?
Yeah, I think so.
Do you think they'd be willing out to shell out any money for transfer players? Because usually that's
so I think that Clemson is more than willing to make some lucrative NIL deals for players. I don't think that Clemson will ever be willing to get into bidding wars with other universities.
Yeah.
So if that answers your question.
I don't know how much upfront money Sam got, but I know he's a millionaire. I don't know if that's just from NIL deals.
Yeah.
Or it could be from the boosters.
Look, and some of these numbers that are, kind of publicized for college football players, I don't know how real any of them are, legitimate. But at the end of the day, I do know that Clemson has two NIL collectives on their, in their kind of circle in their university, and I do know that there is several people on the Clemson football team that are doing very well when it comes to NIL. I don't think that the narrative that Dabo Sweeney is completely against NIL is true. I think that's an overspun narrative by the national media. I think Clemson is very competitive when it comes to NIL, but I think also that Clemson is focused on players on the roster when it comes to NIL. I don't
Yeah.
think they're interested necessarily in competing with a bidding war when it comes to maybe a transfer player or even a high school player. I don't think Clemson's necessarily interested in getting into bidding wars in those settings, but I think they are very interested in compensating players that are on the Clemson roster.
Yeah, that's kind of where I stand. Yeah, I don't see Clemson ever really just outbidding somebody for a player. Like they're going to have to want to come to Clemson, and that be the primary motivation for them coming here, or they're not. Clemson is not going to take them. It's the same kind of it's the same philosophy I think that Clemson goes about in recruiting. They're not going to just flash money at a kid and say, "Come on over." Some schools do that, but I don't. And I'm not saying I'm not naive enough to say that Clemson has never paid anybody, but they go about it very differently than other schools, and I think they go about it similar to how Notre Dame does things. Like they're not going to get into bidding wars for kids. Like if you want to come to Notre Dame, you're going to come to Notre Dame, and we'll take care of you monetarily wise. But that's not. If that's your primary motivation for coming here, you're not a fit. So I think that's where I think both programs are really similar in that fashion. So that's kind of where I stand on that.
Yeah.
All right. Let's.
You're muted, Jordan.
Yeah.
Lost my mic. Okay. I don't know what's going on. Yeah, it said my browser lost my mic for a second. I think we're good. I think.
Yeah, you're good. I can
right.
hear you.
Good. See, people, Danny Ford would have thrived in NIL. Yeah, knowing what we know, probably. Knowing what was going on at Clemson in the 80s. Yeah. Yeah.
He was built for it.
Yeah. It was a time. The 80s were a time. I mean, Clemson was far from the only program, but the 80s were a time. For
the
recruiting.
Southwest and the SEC pretty much all did that too.
Yeah,
for sure.
And Clemson got hit harder than a lot because the ACC just. Let me. I don't even want to get into that, but there's deep-rooted. There's some hard feelings still from how that whole thing was handled in the 80s by the ACC, because Clemson got a punishment from the NCAA, and then the ACC decided to double down and just basically ruined the only football power they had in the conference until Florida State got in there. So that's kind of how. Just another instance of the ACC not having football in their best interest and not having Clemson specifically in their best interest, even though they were the only thing keeping them relevant in that sport at that time.
Yeah, the ACC never does, though.
Yeah, no. Chief Brody gets in and says, "I think Clemson has a bad O-line, and I think Cade has PTSD." I don't know if I don't know if that's the right word for it, because I don't when I look at Kate, like I don't see a guy that seems like shaken. Like I don't like he doesn't look scared. I just don't think he's really processing things. I don't think it's not like how you looked at DJ at times where it was like it was clear he just looked flat out uncomfortable, and
Yeah.
I think it's just I just don't think Cade is seeing things the way he should be. I think it's a processing thing. I don't think he's seeing the field all that well. But yeah, the offensive line not being great definitely doesn't help either, and that was the case for DJ as well. You know, let's see, yeah, SMU, yeah, that was
The best team money could buy.
Yeah,
the death penalty.
We'll never see anything like that probably ever again.
Definitely not.
Yeah, what they were doing was it was pretty blatant. Like they didn't even hide it half the time. Like they were so like upfront about it. It was crazy. But they were really good. They were really good when for those few years. Let's see. Chief Brody also talking about the Michigan stuff. Yeah, I really don't know what's going to come of that because the Big Ten. I know they said something about the Big Ten wanting something. The Big Ten schools wanting something to be done about it. I'm interested to see how that investigation plays out because you haven't really seen anything like that. Clemson had a reputation for sign stealing, but they were never accused of sending people to games, in-person scouting and stuff. Like sign stealing itself isn't illegal. It's been a part of the game since it's been since football has existed. But there've been rules about legally sending people to games and scouting and taking note of their signs and stuff. Like what Clemson did was they would look at TV film, all 22, whatever they could, but they weren't sending scouts to games and stuff.
Right.
So, it's a really messy situation, and the more that comes out, the more deep rooted it seems. Like they were finding that guy was like on the sideline talking to their coordinators back in like 2019, like just like I think the theory about South Carolina last year is pretty interesting. I don't think there's much. I don't think there's much proof there, but it would be it'd be really interesting if that were the case. That South Carolina took Michigan's information. Got Clemson and Tennessee's information from Michigan.
Especially hilarious.
There's a lot of circumstantial evidence that kind of fits that theory because Shane
if
Beamer was part of it.
If that is true, that would be one of the more hilarious narratives in college football. Like that would be like, wouldn't that be the most college football thing ever if that was actually like a factual thing that happened? Like, and honestly, as a Clemson fan, like, I don't even know that I would be mad. Like, that's just like you got to kind of be proud at that point. Like, I mean, it's just like, I mean, at the end of the day, like, what are you willing to do to win, right? I mean,
and I think it's funny because South Carolina fans, just for years have levied cheating allegations at Clemson, and in some cases it's been true, but it's pretty funny. It'd be pretty funny. It's like, oh, look at you. Because they've kind of taken that high and mighty stance. It's like, well, we're not going to do anything possible to win, and then if that were to come out, like I'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, sure.
Okay,
look at you getting your hands dirty. Look at little brother.
I honestly wouldn't even be mad. I'd be more proud than I was.
Yeah, I'd have to give him props.
I'd be like, man, look at it. Look at South Carolina. They're out there getting it done, man. Like by any means necessary. It's just one of those things. So what do you think? I haven't been following the Michigan saga, I guess, if you will.
It's gotten
particularly close. So, like, what's the latest in the Michigan saga, and what do you guys think comes out of it?
I don't know. I mean, it seems if it's true, I mean, there's going to be some pretty hefty, punishment. But I don't know what that means. Like, is it vacated wins? Is it loss of scholarships? Is it?
I think it should be loss of scholarships, and the whole coaching staff has to leave the program. If I had,
I know why you think. I know why you think that would be pretty harsh.
That would be huge. That would be huge.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing that cripples the program for years.
Yeah, that would body the Michigan program.
Yeah, that's pretty close to death penalty. But I understand as a Notre Dame.
We do not have any love for the Michigan Wolverines.
Yeah, so you guys explain to me, because again, I have not followed this very closely. Just for reasons of, I got a lot going on right now. But what has come out specifically that makes people think that there's any validity to kind of these claims against Michigan? What is the evidence that has come out?
Thing that I know,
and what are the legitimate allegations against Michigan? Not the rivalry, not the hope from the fans that don't like Michigan, but what are the legitimate allegations, and what is the legitimate kind of evidence against?
There's a lot. There's a lot.
So there's this guy, Connor Stallion. I don't know everything that's going on because I have school. I'm in school and I work, but I know there's this guy, Connor Stallions, that basically goes to other Big Ten games and records the games on his phone or on his camera. And I know the latest thing is that he was at the Central Michigan State game, and he was on the sideline for Central Michigan. Like, they just let him on the sideline.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. It's pretty crazy. And he was really sloppy about it too. Like, he brags about it in like some of the like his text messages and stuff like that. Like, they have a lot of evidence that, like, it's not the fact that Michigan, they're just trying to figure out how far up it goes. Like, that's kind of what they're trying to. Like, there's no doubt. Like, Connor Stallions was definitely at games stealing signals, and but they're trying to figure out like how much like liability to do, like, does the head coach and the other coaches, because he was just a support staffer.
Wow.
But it's pretty deep. Like, and it wasn't even just Big Ten games. He allegedly went to Tennessee, and he bought tickets for a Clemson game. I don't know whether he actually went or not. I don't think that was made clear. But
I'm assuming those were last year, right?
Last year. Well, yeah. I mean, they have games going back to like 2019. Like,
oh wow,
that he was at. And he has this whole like manifesto that they, like, he had a whole thing, like, outline of how he wanted the sign stealing operation to go, and like, how he was going to impress Jim Harbaugh and the coaching staff, and work his way up into a bigger role.
Manifesto.
Yeah. It's crazy. No, he has like a whole, like, I think they said it was like 3,000 words or something of like his plans for like the Michigan program and kind of how he wanted to.
So how much does Jim Harbaugh know?
We don't know. He claims.
I guess is the question.
I mean, obviously he says. I mean, obviously he's not going to say he knows, but I don't know what the whole. I don't know how far up it goes. Like, people are speculating right now, but that's still under investigation.
So I would assume they're going to get him on a lack of institutional control, right?
I mean, I think that's definitely in the cards, because at the end of the day, he's liable. Like, that's
At the end of the day, you're the head ball coach. Like, it seems like that's heading towards, to me, a lack of institutional control.
Yeah,
Like
and especially
that's
since
kind of the signature thing for the NCAA.
yeah, and they have video, and they also have video of Connor Stallions on the sideline talking to, like when Don Brown was the defensive coordinator, talking talking to their coordinators, like during play calls and like pointing out stuff and like, so it looks pretty bad.
That's not gonna go well for them.
So
oh boy.
Yeah, there are a lot of things going on, and
so what? I mean, it's been a while since something this big, I think, has happened in college football. So, what does the NCAA do? What is, more importantly, or I guess more interestingly, what does the College Football Playoff Committee do with this? Do they think about this? Do they recognize this at all? Do they, take this into consideration, or do they completely ignore it?
I mean, I don't think you can. I don't think they can really do anything about it because, one, the investigation is still ongoing. You can't punish somebody for something that hasn't been, confirmed or anything like that. So I don't really think they can do anything. Like they're gonna, they have to treat Michigan like normal, like everything's normal. I mean, I would be interested to see like, retroactively how this could affect this year and years past. Like, they were in the playoff the last 2 years. I'd be interested to see how that kind of how that would be addressed, but I don't think the College Football Playoff Committee said that. That because that's not really their job. Like they don't.
I mean, I get it, but at the end of the day, they're all people on a committee that know what is going on with college football. So it would be, pretty hard to ignore the things
you have
that
to,
is going on.
You have to. I mean, they know about it, but you can't just. Yeah, you can't. You couldn't just punish a program for doing. When for an ongoing investigation that hasn't been concluded yet. Like that just.
That's you got a good point there. Yeah. So,
but it's a crazy saga. I'm interested to see how it ends. Like and the more that comes out, the more you're just like, what is going on? And then beyond that, Matt Weiss, their offensive coordinator, he's under investigation for computer crimes, which might be tied into sort of the sign stealing operation. Like he alleged, like they haven't confirmed what it is, but the alleged thing is that he was I don't know, he was getting illegal access to Ohio State like practice film and stuff like that, and somehow like hacking into their network and getting and stealing their practice film and stuff like that. And I don't know if that's just an Ohio State Ohio State fan conspiracy theory, but I've heard that from a few different people. So I don't know what the extent of it, but it could be related to that sign stealing. Either way, Michigan, it does not look very good for them right now.
Oh no,
it does not.
Oh man, they're about to get the business, I guess.
Yeah, it's crazy. But hey, if something like that were to ever happen at Clemson, let me knock on wood.
Yeah. Let's please not deal with that. We got enough problems going on right now at Clemson. We don't need any sign stealing allegations, I would guess.
Yeah.
So.
All right. With that being said, we've been rolling for 2 hours now. I think it's about time to go ahead and wrap it up. Will, thank you so much for sticking with. I mean, you've been on the show for
this is a lot of fun.
And here's to a good game on Saturday.
Mhm.
I'm not, obviously we've already talked about it. Like me and Tiger Paul Craven aren't too confident, but it's
Oh.
I always enjoy playing Notre Dame. Seriously, like
Mhm.
I enjoy the matchup, and it's kind of been a nice little friendly, respectful rivalry in some ways. So
Yeah,
I always
it's
enjoy playing them. So
it's nice to think about the BYOG game, but at the end of the day, I don't think this game is going to be that, man. So unfortunately, I think our Tigers are going to lose this game. I think we're going to be on 3 straight losses. Where the season goes from there is really up to the players and the coaches and kind of how they rebound. But I think this is a poor matchup for the Tigers at the end of the day. So, Will, let the people know where they can find you, where you do your shows at.
Mhm. So yeah, just one last thing. Like I respect the Clemson program, classy fans, classy program. So really hoping you guys can bounce back next year and hopefully beat those Knowles, man, and beat like
Hopefully,
yeah,
hopefully,
hopefully you can knock off those Florida State fans have been very loud on social
oh
media.
yeah, we know.
But yeah, you can find me over at the Voice of College Football Notre Dame channel. If you guys could just drop a like on our post game show, we have a lot of competition, but we have a good time over there. And yeah, on Will ND, I do a show with my buddy Jeffrey from Only Talk Sports every Monday. We split, so sometimes it's on his channel, sometimes it's on mine. And I'm going to try to drop all the footage I have from my phone of the USC game, so that'll be fun. But yeah, Marcus_era on X if anyone wants to chat about the
Oh,
game
let
or.
me drop it real quick.
Mhm.
yeah, absolutely.
Hopefully, no more injuries for the Tigers. Hopefully,
Hopefully
they can get
not.
it. Yeah.
We are not quite a healthy team at this point. Um, but
Appreciate the love, D-Rock.
at the end of the day, I think you've had quite a few Notre Dame fans in here tonight. I hope you guys come out for the post game live that me and Jordan will do immediately following this game. Win or lose, me and Jordan will be right here. We'll be breaking down the game, and it's going to be a great show regardless.
Yeah.
We'll probably have a few more people in there if we lose, but at the end of the day, it's all good. Will, thank you so much for joining us tonight, man. We really do appreciate it.
Yeah, you guys have run an awesome show here. So always,
Yeah,
if I'm
you
available,
always
I always
you
try to check
always
it out.
yeah, you always pop in here and show us love, even when we're not playing the Irish. So we really do appreciate it. Everybody in the comment section tonight, I know we got 35 people in here right now. If you guys go ahead and hit the like button for us, hit the subscribe button for us, check out Will on the Notre Dame channel, check out Will on his channel, Will ND, and show him some love over there as well. But until next time, I'm Tiger Paul Craven. He's Jordan Bowman. We got Will ND tonight as our resident Notre Dame fan. But until the post game live, go Tigers.
Later, y'all.
Thanks, everyone.